And great, got it going over there. Let me also make sure I can click and see your comments. All right, click for more. There we go. Good. Thanks for those of you that are coming in. I can see people joining on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm sure we'll get a few on YouTube as well. So let me go ahead and start a recording so I can also have a record of this just in case. All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I am back home. I am back in my home office in Atlanta. And for those of you who joined my Lightroom stream yesterday, I did the topic we're going to do now. And the reason I'm doing it again is because I was on the road using, not stable internet. Let's just call it that. And the audio dropped out in the middle of that presentation like twice. So, luckily it was towards the end, so I think people got the gist of it. But I just wanted to record it again and do it again so that A, we don't hopefully have any audio dropouts or any issues, and B, I can put a link to this in that broadcast or in the notes so that if anyone really did miss something, they could watch it again via this stream. So welcome everyone from around the world. I see people from England, Germany, and Michael Montgomery's in the house. Welcome. Joe's in the house. And I'm sure there's some folks I'm missing here. Thanks for loving my content. And great. Got some great folks in the room. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the topic yesterday was one thing you might have missed in the latest update to Lightroom Classic CC. And I revealed what that thing was, and it was basically the new rewritten tethering support for both Canon and Nikon cameras. Now, the Canon support came out in December. I was jealous, but anyway, it came out in December, but that same support got added in February of this year, 2019, for those of you who are watching this much in the future, February 2019, for Nikon or Nikon cameras as well. So I'm going to jump over to my computer so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Let me switch over to the computer. And hold on, let's switch. For some reason, my keyboard didn't want to switch. All right, we'll switch over to the computer. And I've got Lightroom Classic CC open. I've got a couple of images open, and I took those images with my phone because I wanted to show you what the setup was. So Joseph Harris is asking why Lightroom Classic. If you're asking why that application or why the name, I'm not sure, but the name came as a result of we have a newer product called Lightroom CC that is web-based. That is cloud-based, and that one took over the name of Lightroom CC, so the Lightroom you've been using for over a decade became Lightroom Classic CC. All right, but anyway, back to our story. I've got these two images open here. I'm going to hit full screen on it, and I don't pay attention to the messy cables, but in the background. But anyway, you can see my Nikon D850 on the left, and it's pointed at that little camel, the Adobe camel over there that I got as a gift. Someone brought that to me at one of my events. And of course, I've got a tethering cable plugged into the left side of it. That's a Tether Tools cable, and it is plugged into the USB 3 port on the camera and the USB cable in... I'll answer that in a second. And it's the other end of it is plugged into the computer that I'm running Lightroom on. All right, so another question, when we get live shooting in Lightroom Classic CC, a lot of it has to do with what we can do based on what the camera manufacturers put in what they call the SDK, their software developer kit. So, for example, one of the questions I got yesterday was, well, how come you don't support Sony? And it's not that we don't want to support Sony. We would love to support Sony, but Sony hasn't opened that door for us to do it. In other words, they have to give us the tools that we would need to build that into our software. So same thing for things like live shooting. If it's not in the SDK, meaning developers like Adobe can't take advantage of it, then we can't do it. All right, so with that said, let's now that we've seen the setup, I'm going to show you the new interface. Now, the interface looks very much like the old interface, but back in December, there were two tether captures. There was the tether capture, which was the new one for Canon. And then there was one, I forgot what it was even called. It was down at the bottom, something like other cameras for tether, something like that. But now that's all been consolidated back in where it should be, tether capture, start tether capture, and or tethered capture, I should say. And then once you bring this up, you would give it a session name. So I called it Lightroom February, just FEB yesterday. And today I'm calling it Lightroom February-2, meaning this is the second take of this. Now, what this will do is it will create a folder on your drive based on whatever you type in here. That folder will be stored wherever you tell it to store it. It will be in whatever location you choose. So I chose my Dropbox folder with my pictures folder in there, and that's where I keep things. So that way it's not only shooting to that folder, but it's syncing. And then therefore I can open up Lightroom like on my laptop and have those same photos because they're in Dropbox. But anyway, you can also set up your naming system. So I use the name of the session plus a 4-digit number because I'm never shooting more than 9,999 images per shoot. But I could certainly shoot more than 999. So that's why I'm using 4 digits instead of 3. Now, the segment photos by shot, I do use that from occasion, and what that will do is it will let you toggle to the next segment or bring up another segment. For example, a segment could be, let's say you're photographing a model and he or she has a wardrobe change. Then that would be a second segment, or a third segment, or a fourth segment. So if you're shooting something that's going to change drastically, then you would do segments, but we're not going to do that today. Then I'm going to set the number back down to 1. I did some test shots earlier. So we're going to start with number 1 as the first image. And this is not new as of this update, but this is still fairly new, and that is the ability to add to a collection. So what that means is that you can not only shoot to the folder that you're going to shoot to, but it will also place those images in the collection that you pick or create at this spot. Now, what's cool about that is you'll also get if you create a new collection, so let's say I create a new one, and I call it Lightroom February Update. Let's call it 2019 February Update. I can, and I can tell it where to put it, but I can also sync that with Lightroom CC, meaning sync it with the cloud. So that way, you can, if you think about it this way, you could be doing a shoot that your images are all automatically going to the cloud, and then therefore someone on the web, you can send them the link and they would be able to look at your images as you're taking them. So they would have to refresh the page each time, but they would be able to actually look at your images as you're shooting them. So this is great if you're doing like a client review or you're doing something where you want people to be able to see what you're doing as you're doing it. Then I would say shoot to the folder and add them to a collection and sync that collection with Lightroom CC, and then go and share that collection and send whoever you want to see it with the link. All right, I'm going to cancel that. I'm not going to do a add to a collection because I just don't need to. Now, the metadata template hasn't changed. This is where you go in and you create a metadata template, and this will put in all your copyright information, your studio name, your phone number, your web address, whatever you want in that template to go into every single image you take. So I have one called Terry White Copyright, which puts my copyright information in all my images. Now, if you're shooting the same thing, like, and you're going to use consistent keywords across the board, you can put them in now, so you don't have to do it later. So, for example, I'm shooting something that is Adobe focused, and I'm shooting a camel. So I will put both of those keywords in. Now, this is a new option as of February 2019, and that is the ability to disable auto advance. So I don't ever see a reason why I would want that, because I do want to see the next image as I shoot. But I could see where people might be doing a review and they have one image open and someone else is still taking more, and they don't want it to move off of that image that they're looking at. So that's why the disable auto advance is now an option. Again, I don't think I'd use it, but someone might. Now, before I forget, there's one more new thing in this update, especially for Nikon users. Not only do we get the new tethering that's been rewritten, but it's also supporting the new mirrorless camera, the Z6 and Z7. So if you're a Nikon or Nikon shooter and you have a Z6 or Z7, you can now tether that via USB-C, I think, on that camera to your computer and do what I'm about to do next. So I'm going to click OK. It will find my camera. It will bring up the tethering bar, and the tethering bar, as I like to say, is the thing that's always in the way. No matter where you put it, it's in the way of something. Now I'm going to keep it up because I'm going to use it, but if you ever wanted to hide it, meaning you're on the camera pressing the shutter, so therefore you don't need to see this bar anymore, you can hit Command-T on the Mac or Control-T on Windows. That will hide it. It's still there. It's still running, but it's just hidden from view, and of course Command-T will bring it back. All right, now, another new thing that you might have missed is in this February update, and this is something I never even thought, I guess I never thought it wasn't there, but in this new update, if you're shooting, I guess this was there for Canon, but now if you're shooting for Nikon as well, you have the ability to choose between multiple cameras that are plugged in. So maybe you're doing some kind of elaborate product shoot and you've got one camera shooting one side of the product and another camera shooting the other side of the product. You'd be able to switch between the multiple cameras here and designate which one is going to start shooting into your computer. So if you got more than one USB port camera plugged in, you would see them here if they were on. All right, Terry, will these improved features work with my Nikon D7000? I can't see why they wouldn't. You would still have access to the same things I'm about to show you. So we're going to go ahead and take our first test shot, and I'm going to show you some more new things. All right, so let's go ahead and shoot. I'm just going to, now, I normally would have the camera in my hand and pressing the button, but it's over there on a tripod. But luckily, there's a shutter release right here. And it will take my first shot, and I can go into loop view. And the one thing you will notice that happened for the first shot is that it was fast. That's the whole point of this, is that it's been rewritten to be faster, especially as the cameras have gotten more and more megapixels. This is a D850, so it's a 46 megapixel camera, and I'm shooting raw. These images are huge. So it's bringing it over literally in 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. There it is. That's the new one. Now it didn't change because the image hasn't changed, but we're going to get to that in a second. Before I have the image, my assistant's ready to go change something, but before I have that happen, let's work on the shot first. So a couple things I don't like about this. I don't want to see my neighbors' houses in the background. So that's one. And normally I would go to the camera and switch my aperture to be more wide open, to get a more shallow depth of field. So another new thing is you've got your aperture control right here on the tether bar. So I can go from f10, I'm shooting with a really fast lens, so I can go all the way down to f1.4. This is a 85 millimeter f1.4, so I can now shoot that, and we can see that one and see what the difference will be. I think she did move it, and yeah, she turned it around, and now the camel's facing the other way. And so we get that shallow depth of field, blurring out the background so we don't see the neighbor's home. Now, one more thing. And this is not new, but it's something that people often miss. Well, there's some adjustments I would make to this image. Now, normally what people would do is they would just shoot. And of course, anything that you can adjust in the camera, you would do. But like it's, you know, this is kind of backlit. We're just using natural light coming in and out of that window. So the front doesn't really look lit well at all because it's not. It's just using ambient light. And if I were going to go into the develop module, I would do a few things. I would go to the develop module, and the first thing I would do is do a lens correction, because I always like doing a lens correction unless the camera does it, which Sony users will be quick to point out. So I'll enable lens profile correction, and that brightened up the edges right off the bat. It took some of the vignetting away. It also took any curvature that would have been introduced by the lens. If I was having a problem with chromatic aberration, I would also go ahead and remove that. And next, I would head over to basic, and I would do a couple of things. I would bump up my shadows so that the shadows are brighter in this image. We can pull out some detail here. I could even go a little higher on the exposure. And these are the kinds of adjustments I would make to this image. Now, and maybe I bump up the clarity a little bit. I can go crazy, but these are the kinds of things I might want to do. And I might want to bring the highlights up a bit more as well. And now that image is starting to look the way I want it to look. Now, of course, if I shoot the next image, we're going to be back to square one again. This is what would happen. You're going to shoot the next image, and that one is not adjusted. That one comes right back to where we were. You'd have to make the adjustments again. So I'd have to go back to lens correction, turn that back on, go back to basic, turn the shadows back up, the highlights back up, clarity back up a little bit, and of course, increase the exposure. And I don't want to do that every single time. So on the tethering bar, you've got develop settings. And if I save what I just did as a preset, great, I can grab it as a preset. But if I just simply say same as previous, which is my favorite option because it doesn't require me to save a preset. Now when I take the next shot, it comes in already adjusted. And let's prove it. I'm going to have my assistant turn the camera back the other way. And she's doing that now. Okay. It's been turned, and now we'll take another shot. And again, now it came in already adjusted. And I can crop, I can do anything I want, and it will just do all of those things as I keep shooting. So you make an adjustment, you do same as previous, and it will keep doing whatever you just adjusted to the next image that you capture. So I love same as previous for that reason. Now, I'll point out, since we're here, I'll point out one more thing, and that is this little circle next to the capture. That is to bring back up the settings. So if you were shooting by segment, or if you wanted to change anything like the name or switch to a different folder, maybe you're starting to shoot something different, maybe you're going to do different keywords, you can bring that back up at any time to make changes, and then just click OK, and all the new images you bring in from this point forward would have the new information you just made changes to. Go to the different folder, different keywords, so forth and so on. So Paul M is asking the question I answered earlier. Still not for Sony cameras? Again, I'll go on the record. Adobe would love to support Sony cameras, but Sony has to open that door for us to do it. We can't break in. We can't, re-engineer their technology. So Nikon and Canon have made their technology available to us. So has Leica. So that's why we support those cameras, because they have opened the door via either a software developer kit or just giving us the code we need to be able to build tethering in. So as soon as Sony does that, we'll be happy to support Sony. And again, if you wanted to hide the bar, Command T, and you would just keep shooting with the shutter release on your camera. All right, I think I got everything that I wanted to cover. Let me look at my notes. Yep, I got the notes. Let me do one thing here. Let's see if this will work. All right, there should now be a poll for you guys somewhere in the chat or somewhere in this stream. If you can answer the question on the poll. If you see it, great. And it'll only be on Facebook. Sorry for everyone else that's watching. If you see the poll, answer the poll questions. If not, don't worry about it. I'm just doing a test here. But anyway, that is pretty much it. So tethering support now basically the same for both Canon and Nikon. Canon got it first in December. Nikon got it second in February. And Leica cameras also support it. Faster. So tethering, used to take with a 46 megapixel image, maybe 5-6 seconds. Now it's down to 2-3 seconds, depending on, what settings you have and the speed of your computer. And love the new capture support. And again, the reason I'm restreaming this today is I did it yesterday on the road, sound issues because of the Wi-Fi connection. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't miss anything. So I'm doing it again today. All right. Rike from Denmark, welcome. Tune in late, but we'll go back and watch soon. Thanks, Jerry. All right. With that said, I'm going to pop over to in this. Let's go ahead. Actually, you know what? Let's look at that. There we go. Let's do this. There we go. So we'll do our wrap up. So thanks again for watching this, and go try out the new tethering if you have a compatible Nikon or Canon camera. you guys can have a blast shooting tethered. I can't wait to get my Z6, which somewhere is on the UPS truck. I'll have a Z6 to play with, and I can't wait to use the new tethering support with that camera as well. And maybe I'll connect them both up and try both at the same time and switch back and forth. See how that all works together as well. All right. Yeah, you won't see the poll on YouTube. All right, next up, I'll be streaming again next week, back on the regular kind of schedule, at least for the first couple days, Monday, Tuesday, and then I'm off again to another event after that. So stay tuned. I'll have more to show you. And thanks for watching. We will catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.